Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Daily Dose. It is Monday. It's a little overcast, but that's all right. I hope you had a good weekend. Did you have a good weekend?
I did. It was fantastic.
Excellent.
I spent it with you, and it was awesome.
It was nice. So today we are talking about fancy party anxieties, and actually, Anne Riley, who just got on, and I believe you were at the party we're going to talk about. You probably don't remember this. I'm not sure you were here when this moment happened, but I am 95% certain that it was the party that you were at for an arts partnership event called Community Supported Art. Our first year of doing it, so 10 years ago, and the Northern Plains Botanic Garden Society had made some rhubarb leaf, cabbage leaf, like little bowls. What are those things called? Bird baths, little bird baths that were going to go outside. So I think that's why you were there, Anne, and I forgot about it till I saw your name pop up. But I just have to give a little bit of backstory. Sorry, I had to get that out of the way. In my day job, I host a lot of events. And they are kind of fancy party events, which makes my life super fun because I have a reason to own fancy party dresses and high heels and all of that, which is lovely. And Maz almost always comes, in part because I need his assistance often, and in part because who doesn't like a fancy party? But this party, I realized I needed ice, and so I sent Maz to the grocery store to get ice. And he came back from the grocery store, and a number of people had started to gather, and he walked in carrying 2 heavy bags of ice, and he bellowed out, "Dana!" Oh, it even alarmed our nearly deaf dog.
Now the dog's awake.
"Dana, where do you want me to put this?" Fill in the blank.
Mum's not yelling.
And it was one of those moments where I felt like all of the noise in the space stopped and everything turned to look at me. And my mom was there, and my mom is not real big on swearing. You've probably noticed. If I even say anything
I never noticed
moving
that.
towards the swears, she gets a little uncomfortable. And I wanted to have the ground open up and swallow me. I was so mortified. It felt like such an inappropriate response. As the host of the party, it just, the whole thing was mortifying. And I was very unhappy and had to figure out in the moment how to sort of, pass it off and brush it under the rug, because that's not the place to rip into your spouse. Now, I need to say this. It was very rare that Maz showed up to an event and was inappropriate. Very, very rare. That's the only one I can think of in 10 and a half years in this job. And I'm telling you this because my perspective was, well, you're just being a jerk. But talk a little bit about before you got sober, talk about how it felt to get dressed up and how you felt in those moments, please.
I felt terrified, worried, anxious, kind of annoyed, because I was never any good at getting dressed up. And phrases used to fly through my head, things like mutton dressed as lamb, or you're trying too hard, and stuff like that. So it was never a pleasant experience for me.
Which I never knew. And I just assumed that because I like to get dressed up and because I'm confident in front of people, everyone is. And in case you don't know this about this man, I don't call him Dr. Mary out of like some made-up thing, or because he's got a PhD from some dumpy little university. This man is, of all the people I know with PhDs, and I happen to know a lot of people with PhDs,
you know a lot of people with
both
PhDs.
in my own realm and because of you, you have one of the top PhDs in the world.
If you into plant biology.
If you care about plant biology.
I've got to stipulate that one.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. But still, in the world. So you wouldn't expect that man who could do all the things that he has done would get anxious about putting on a suit and coming to a social event. So I never considered that. I also never considered, until we started talking about this theme this morning, that some of the anxiety would also have been, as Maz has referenced, as so many of our guests have referenced, this need to not drink in public.
Yeah.
So I mean, all of our events have wine, and I will say, no one at our parties has ever had too much to drink. First of all, I always have a pourer, and they're not that kind of party.
You have always done a fantastic job at that.
Well, and because my mom doesn't drink at all and never has, I always made sure to have non-alcoholic sparkling cider and those kinds of things so people could do that. But when you were drinking, you would have a glass or two of wine, and no one thought anything of it, including me. Okay, so that's the preface, the backstory. The Arts Partnership had our first foray into the coming out of COVID world on Saturday.
It was awesome.
It was lovely. We did a hybrid event. So we had our spring fundraiser in someone's home, and she and I determined, and the board, she and I and the board determined how many people we could safely have in her home. You had to show proof of vaccination. You had to socially distance. We had all these requirements set up. So 8 people were in her home with us, and then everyone else had this beautiful Zoom experience. And you were there in your suit, looking fabulous, I might add, because you do clean up well. You don't try too hard.
Yeah, I know.
And I have forced you to buy some pretty good clothes. So
all of this is tragically true.
So talk about how you felt in that moment, please.
I felt comfortable, relaxed, in control of myself. Not worried or angry because I was worried, and just proud of you because you did a fantastic job.
And you were such an amazing asset. Thank you for that, by the way. Sorry, I didn't mean to discount the compliment. You've become such an asset now.
I had a great day. We drove to Blackboard, which is by Maplewood State Park, to pick up the grub early in the morning, and then drove back. And then
it was hardly grub. It was beautiful.
It was beautiful.
Heavy hors
then, of
d'oeuvres.
course, the fantastic chef sent out what her lunch menu was, and I had a hard time not turning the car around and going
It's
back.
true.
But we had to deliver the food. So you're all welcome if you were there. I missed out on crab eggs Benedict for you lot, so you're welcome.
Let me just say, if you're watching, thanks for your donation.
Oh
But-
yeah, that's important.
But what I think is so interesting about this is perception. We've talked so much about this, but I do not think this can be over discussed. And this is, again, for the millionth time, not the purview of the addict. How many times, whether you struggle with alcohol or not, how many times have you walked into an event and you have a perception of the event or of your place in it? And that might be a family event, that might be a formal event, that might be something casual. There are lots and lots of events that people feel anxious about. And if you can't come up with one, I encourage you to go back to the first junior high boy-girl dance that your school held. And if you can't recall that anxiety, then lucky you, you were popular. I was not popular. I can recall that anxiety big time.
I actually went to yours. Was that your 15-year high school
No,
reunion?
it was my 20.
20-year high school reunion. I went to Dana's. I actually can't believe you went to high school with those individuals.
Well, that was about a third of my class. Yes, we're not going to discuss that because mostly they live here, and that's fine. But think about the times you've walked in someplace and thought, I don't fit. I'm not wearing the right clothes. I have nothing to say. Here's what I want to say about this, because I have a lot of confidence I'm hard on my mother, and I pretty freely talk about the places that she kind of assisted in screwing me up, but let me give you a place where she did a fabulous job. She gave me public confidence. And then, of course, I'm an actor, so I can put it on whether I feel it or not. But you know where I get super anxious? Why don't you take me to a world, international plant cell wall biochemistry conference and put me at social hour?
Because they're always a fun time, those things.
You know what? Some of the people you have introduced me to,
yes.
in fact, everyone I have met through you at these conferences
They are awesome.
have been fabulous human beings. But what do you suppose I have to contribute to those conversations? So you know what I do? I always tell them how stupid I am in math and science. Always. Because I don't want them to figure it out, because that feels like they might wonder if I think I belong there.
Yeah,
I know
weird.
I don't belong there, so I let them know I don't belong there, which is unnecessary. First of all, they all talk about plant stuff, but they also talk about other stuff. I am so sorry. I think that when I get texts, it throws the phone off a little bit. So, I feel anxiety still.
Yeah. It's not an excuse, but if you do suffer from anxiety and you do drink about it, don't feel bad about it, in the sense that it's a symptom of that disease. Everyone does it, and if you ever talk to other people about how they feel, they're going to tell you exactly the same thing. Everyone feels the same. It's a symptom of that disease.
But I would say it's a symptom of being alive.
But
We
it's more
all-
prevalent if if you can be
I suppose.
anxious and not have a drink.
I suppose.
If you get into that behaviour where you have to have a couple of drinks before you can feel like you can go out, that
I see.
is a symptom of an addiction.
Yes.
And it's nothing to be ashamed of, because everyone that suffers from an addiction has that symptom.
Yeah. So I think the encouragement for you today is to think about your perspective, and then also think about the perspective of the other person, because that is, to me, what makes this interesting. I never thought about how you felt going into those situations with me. I just thought, well, of course he wants to be here, which may or may not have been true. So give everybody, including yourself, a little bit of grace, particularly as we are walking back into the world in a social way. We're out of practice with this.
Yeah.
I had a little bit of anxiety going into Saturday night, thinking, boy, you haven't done one of these in more than a year. You got to get your game on, in part because it was a fundraiser, so I had a real task. But we got to get back into the rhythm and routine. So give yourself some grace, give everybody else some grace, and remember that the way you're looking at other people is not the way they're looking at themselves, because the way you're being looked at is not the way you see yourself, both good and bad.
Yeah, that's very true.
And the last thing I want to say, because I'm excited about it, now that we have been delivering food to our events for a year to everyone's home, we have come up with some really fun non-alcoholic drink equivalents. So if you want wine, you get wine, and if you want that, you get that.
Oh
No
my
questions
gosh,
asked.
That thing we had on
The
Saturday.
thing we had on
Oh.
Saturday was amazing.
It
So
was.
we're going to do in May, I think we're going to do Tuesday drink making like we did leading up to Christmas. We're going to do it again in May for summer drinks. And I think this will be the first one we make because it was so good. Let me say this to you. I looked around at everybody drinking wine because I was having a non-alcoholic drink. And I felt bad for them that they had wine, because this drink was better, in my opinion, than almost any glass of wine I've ever had. So we're excited to share that with you in May. Anything else, Dr. Mary?
I think we've covered it, Tana.
Thanks for being there on Saturday.
Oh my God, it was fun. Thank you. You're welcome.
Have an excellent day. Give yourself some grace, and everybody else too.
See you
Stay
tomorrow.
safe. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.